Thank you. And thank you for having me. And thanks for joining this Saturday morning, evening, afternoon, or whatever it is where you are. So I am today delivering the session of low-hanging, low-code fruit in model-driven app. That's a mouthful, I know, but hopefully you'll get a good deal out of this. So there we go. This is me. The QR code is my LinkedIn profile. I run my own company here in Norway. I have been a business applications MVP since 2019. I became a certified trainer in 2020. I also became a MCT regional lead in 2024. So I'm currently the only regional lead in Norway. I started on the customer side. So I've been a user of model-driven apps and the system. I don't have any code background at all. I do not code. I will not code. I have taken it upon myself to never write any code at all. I have taken and passed the PL400, which is the Power Platform Developer certification. So I know how to read code, but I'm refusing to write any. I laugh often and I laugh loud, so you can almost always hear me before you can see me. I love the community, so I do a lot of events. I help organize Nordic Summit, Scottish Summit. I run the marketing day, which is half a day for now customer insight journeys and data in Norway, and I run a lot of other events. And I'm also a big Liverpool fan, so I'm very glad I don't have a session later today because I will be watching football. My blog is up top here. Let's see. Here, malindonossomartinez.com. I have also written a book on customer insight journeys, or marketing, as it's called. My book is marketing, so it will forever be the only book on Dynamics marketing. But let's move on, because there's a lot of discussions on, do you need code to succeed anywhere in the Microsoft world, in model-driven apps in particular? No, absolutely not. I have worked now, next month it will be 10 years since I became a consultant. I have never written a single line of code those 10 years. I'm doing perfectly well. I run my own business. I'm busy all the time. So no, you absolutely do not need code to succeed. So do you need people who know how to code and can help you the second you are stuck? Yes, we always need code. So there's not like code is going anywhere, even though Microsoft is a low-code platform now, ish, at least Power Platform. But you can create a full system without writing any type of code at all. What you do need in model-driven apps is a data model. You cannot create a model-driven apps without having the data model set. That is and has to be your first and main priority. When you're working with model-driven apps, Dataverse and getting the data ready is the top priority. Without a good data model, you won't have a good system. So data modeling always comes first when it comes to model-driven apps. But then when you have your data model in place, model-driven apps doesn't necessarily need to look like the boring old CRM system that we've had for years. There are a lot of things we as functional consultants can do in order to make the system look better, work smarter, because that's what we really want to do. Now, I will be taking you down some really old stuff that looks old, that is old, but it works. It works. It's been tested. Some of the things I'm going to show today has been in the system for at least the 10 years I've been working with it. We will be going into the classic editor. I'm sorry, that's just how life is. But I'm hoping some of it will come to the new. I have asked Microsoft on some of this stuff, like when is this coming to the new interface? When can we do this without going to Classic? Because the second you are in to Classic, the first time you're going over and back into Classic, it takes time. So just be aware that there are a lot of slides in this, and a lot of them are in Classic mode. And if you've never seen it, I'm sorry, but it has a lot of good stuff. So with that disclaimer, let's move on to the actual things. So the first thing, of course, I want to mention is business rules. Business rules, when that came, completely changed my life. It is one of the biggest things that helped me not use code. And for my developers, they were super happy when business rules came, because that meant they didn't have to write the boring old JavaScript codes all the time to do the same things. I could do it. So I could do it myself in 15 minutes without having to ask my developer to write a code, to put it into the wherever you store all the code and all the things. And it was quicker for me, it was quicker for them, and everyone was happy. Business rules, it looks old. I know, I'm sorry. That's just the way it is, and it is slow. So when you're in your system, click on a business rule for the first time, it will take some time. It doesn't mean it's not working, you just need patience, which is what we all have a lot of, right? The first thing you do is to set the condition. So the condition can be anything. This column contains data. This information is over 500 or not under 500. And then you add the actions. So what do you want to do? Do you want to lock or unlock a column? Show an error message, set field value, set default value, set business required, and set visibility. So all of these can be used in model-driven apps. One of the ones I used all the time is to show or hide visibility. So here I've set a condition that says the email contains data. So when I'm in a model-driven app and the column email contains data, then I want to set the visibility for both do not allow bulk emails and do not show emails. On the same time, if the email column is empty, I want to not show these two columns. It's super simple. It's click, and you remember to click apply. Because every single time you do changes in the right here, you need to click apply for it to actually go into the business rule. And then you can say you want to show, you want to hide, you want to mix and match and say this should be hidden, well, this should be shown. And then you don't have to do JavaScript. Or I can say the email contains data. I want to show do not allow bulk emails, and I want to set the bulk emails as required. And if it doesn't, I don't want to show it and it's not required. So here I can mix and match, and I can set the different parts to visible. So all of, these actions I can use and I can mix them. So I can create anything I want to do, which is super helpful for me. So I work with the Scottish Summit, which is an event in Scotland in October. In person, we are using customer insight journeys and Power Pages fully. So everything that is with Scottish Summit is in Microsoft World. So we've done some customizations. ScottishSummit.com is a Power Page. This form is a marketing form from Customer Insights. So we want people to volunteer, people who are traveling to Scotland who are willing to volunteer with us. So we need the first name, the last name, and the email. But I also want to set some things in the background. So we have 2 people who are responsible for volunteers. They need to be set on copy to everyone who has registered as a volunteer. This don't help me. I can't get those 2 people set with this form. But I don't need a developer. Because I can say that the column, which is a hidden column in this form, is set to yes. Then I will set Luke and Rex as the managers. So I have set that data based on another column. Super. I don't have to use code. I don't have to do anything. It just works. Of course, I have to save it and I have to activate it. And once it is activated, I can't do any changes. I can go in and deactivate it and then do it again. So business rules is for a lot of good things. It should be used. If you're not a developer, it can make you help do magic, hopefully. So, business process flows. Before I became a consultant, I worked for a couple of years as an event manager. I've also worked in sales, horrible salesperson. There are certain steps you need to do at certain times for everything to work and flow. And business process flow is one of these. This is not code. This is dragging, dropping. This is where you set the process, and this is what should be done. So every time you deliver dynamic sales, for example, it has out-of-the-box sales business process flow. You should be changing that. So you should be using that and setting all the different steps in each of the steps here. Or use it for other things, like an event, like anything else you want to do. So maybe you have a membership organization and you want to have the different steps of the membership. So first, you're a member, or first you apply to be a member, then you go through some steps, then you go to the next stage, and then you go through maybe seeing if they're eligible for the membership, and then you approve the membership, and then there are some steps in there, and then the next stage is an active membership. So all of this can be done. And the reason we are using business process flows is to make things easier for the user. That is why we should create any system to make life easier for the users. And this makes it easier because you can have everything you need and everything you want to do for anything in the correct order. So I think a lot of people are using business process flows today, and I think it's very well known. If you don't know it, go look at it because it is helpful. Now, something that is kind of a hidden gem is reference panels. I absolutely love reference panels. This is one of the things that you need to go over to the classic view. It doesn't exist yet in the new interface. I have no idea when it's going to be there. I hope soon because it's brilliant. But let's get into what it is. So reference panels, the first thing you need to do is, as I said, switch to classic. You can find that in the 3 dots and switch to classic, and then brace yourself with a lot of patience. So just go in, click there, and then we can wait for 10 minutes sometimes. It is slow. What is reference panels? Well, this view is in a model-driven app. I hate it. It's long. It has 3 different subgrids, but they get long. And you can have plenty of different subgrids. Oh, we actually have 4 different subgrids: contacts, opportunities, cases, and entitlements. So this takes a lot of place. This makes the form for, in this case, an account, I think, it makes it long. It's not very visually pleasing. So we're going to fix that. And then this is the old interface. So this is the world of CRM that I grew up in back in 2011 and 15 and 14 and 16 and everything. This was the way we did things. If you go to Insert, Add Section, and then Add Reference Panel, you will get a new section, which looks kind of like this. Not kind of, it looks exactly like this. And then you go back and add a subgrid to this section. And then you get a properties tab. So you select that, and it's still called entity. Sorry, it's table. You select the correct entity and the correct view. You want to probably only show the related records. So this is for contact. So this will be the opportunities that a contact is connected to. And then you have, and this is kind of the worst part of it all, then you have the icon. So it has to have a picture. You would imagine that Microsoft have all their web resources named in a good manner, in a proper manner, in some manner that we can find it. They don't. So you can't here search and find opportunities, for example. That's not a web resource that exists. Well, it exists, but it's not named as opportunity. And if you inspect the opportunity icon, you can't find that either. So they've hidden it some magical place. I will get back to a place where you can actually do these icons in a way better manner. But you have to either upload the images or use one of the ones that are there already. Most of the time, I upload it because you never know how these looks. Well, Dynamics Icon Sales is pretty okay. I know how that looks. But of the others, I have no idea how case, I have no idea how entitlement or contacts or anything, what's it called? So be aware, you can go into PowerPoint and save the icons from PowerPoint as SVG and then upload them as web resources. So that's the easiest way of doing it out of the box. Once this is set, my long list of subgrids, all of this, now looks like this, where I can click on, this is the opportunities, these are the cases, and these are the entitlements. I now have one small box showing all the different subgrids. I can still click on it and see the information. I can click on the ellipses and go to that specific row. I can still do all of that. I can still add new. I can still add existing. I can do all of that in my reference panel. I wish everyone in the world that was using model-driven apps was using these reference panels, because they look great. And as I said, there is only in the classic view, and I have no idea if and when they are coming over to the new interface, but they're working really great. You can only have one reference panel per form. So you cannot mix and match and say, oh, I want this one and I want that one and I want it in different places. There's only going to be one, but you can add as many as you want. And of course, it's responsive out of the box, so it will change if you're to the left, if you have a smaller or bigger screen, or up front. So it's a really, really good way of showing the different subgrids that you have connected to this row. So absolutely love it. Columns. So column is a column, isn't it? It's boring out of the box, nothing to be done with it unless you use code. No, wrong. So you can see stars. Did you know that? Out of the box, without a single shred of code from my side, developers at Microsoft work so that people like me, functional consultants, don't have to use code. So I have these columns and number of children. I randomly took some. It could be any type of number column. And I click it. I'm here in the form view. I click it. I go through the bottom and I add component. And here I can see I have a star rating. I also have a lot of other different ways to view this. I can see here I now have a star. I've also added the preferred language, which is a choice, and done a component for that. Preferred time, I've also changed the component. Description, I've added a rich text column for it. All of these are out of the box in components. As you can see, I can also get more components. So or embed a Canvas app, if you want that. And the different types of columns will have different possibilities in your components. So because this is a choice and this is a choice, these are just two different ways, two different components of showing a column. So it doesn't have to be boring. Your columns doesn't have to look as they always have done out of the box with no changes, unless you're a big pro developer or using code, or probably maybe if you do something that's not supported out of the box. Been there, done that. But this is a way we can all do it. Everyone can do it. Everyone can do changes, and it looks a lot better. It's understandable and it works. I love it. Views. A view is a view. How many ways can you consume your data? Surprisingly many ways, I found. When I started thinking about this presentation, I was like, but can I really fill a full 45-minute session on this? Is it that much? Yes. And as I started preparing for this, yes, and then some. So I had to take something away. I think I should. I hope I will be good on time. But there's a lot of non-developer things that we can do. And views is one of them. Editable view. Again, I'm in a view and I add a component. You have calendar and you have editable view, editable grid. So if I add an editable grid, I choose my active contacts, I can do some other settings, and I click done. Now, every time I go into my active contacts, I can do edits in the view. I don't have to open up a row and go into the form and do edits. I can do it directly in the view. So here, for example, I have just clicked on Abby, which we all do all the time, and I can see her name is locked. That is because that's a composite field. So that is first name and full name put into one full name. First name and last name, sorry. And email, I could change unless someone's locked it. Lock it with business rule, for example. Or business phone. I can add the data here. I can do all changes that I have access to in the data in this row. I would probably recommend to set it up in my active contacts, my active accounts, because it will make it easier for me to do edits on the things that I own in the system. But again, how security is set up and who has access to do changes to what, it differs from company to company. But it is a great way of being able to do edits directly in the view without having to open up all the forms. I love it. Calendar view, which is the other one we looked at. In calendar view, you have to have a start date, a description of everything, an end date. So you have to have start and end date, and they won't work on all entities, and it's not sure that it will work. I got a bug yesterday when I tried it for journeys, but I'm gonna try again and again and again and ask Microsoft. So just these descriptions and these information, they don't really help much at all. Start date is good. Description, okay, I want the event text, the event name to be shown, and end date's pretty okay. Duration, I don't have any duration on the events, and I can say what is the color that is deciding. So I have a lot of different options that I can do. And once I have done this and I have published, I can go to my view. So these are all the active events. I can go to show as and select marketing calendar. This view is then transformed into this view, which helps a lot for me because now I can see when do we have events scheduled. I can make sure that we don't have any overlapping events or that none of my colleagues are scheduling events at the same dates as I am. Or this, as I said, I tried yesterday to do this for journeys. I got a strange error message. I don't know if that was just because it was late last night or what it was, but this is a brilliant way of showing anything that has a start and end date. So calendar is really, really good. Now, there's something called a pipeline view, which comes out of the box in the Sales Hub. I want people to be aware of this. This is not something that we can create ourselves, but it is in the system and it works. Also in the show as, you can show the pipeline view, and it shows you this deal tracker and sales funnel of the data that is in all opportunities that I have here or my open opportunities. I can see some statistics. This is a great help for my salespeople. This is somewhere where they can get a great overview easily in the system. So be aware, this comes out of the box in Dynamics 365 Sales, but you need to remind people that they're here. Another thing that comes out of the box is Power BI. you need to turn it on in the settings. But if I'm in the All Opportunities view, I can visualize this view in Power BI. I click on this button, takes a tad bit of time, but then I have a report. I have a Power BI report. I have done absolutely nothing. I have not created any visuals. I have not played around with Power BI. I have not done anything. I've clicked one button and this magical Power BI report appears. I can do some changes and say I want to have the estimated revenue, for example, not the actual revenue. And I want to do some changes here, and I can also save it. So if I find a view, because you can do this in all of your views in a model-driven app. So you can click on that and then it appears, and then you can save it and say, whoa, look at this perfect Power BI report that has been created. And then you can share it with other users in Power BI. Again, out of the box, it's there. No need for any code at all from our side, and it works. Excel Online. Now, Excel is still the most used, I would say, CRM system in the world. A lot of people love Excel, and a lot of people prefer to do things in Excel. So of course you can take it out in a dynamic worksheet or pivot table, or open in Excel Online, and then you can do edits in Excel. So I use this because the demo data in Customer Insight Journey for events, all the events has a starting date in 2017. Which is horrible, which is really, really annoying. So what I could do, I can go in and say, okay, I want to find and replace everything that is 2017 and swap that with 2024. It does the changes, I do save, it comes back into Dataverse, and it's all updated. So if you want to do simple updates of data in the system, Excel Online is brilliant for that. Again, there's no need to create a flow to run through all of it and do stuff and create code or a plugin to go in and do things. There's no need for that. We can do it simple and easily in Excel Online. Now, be aware that this will change all the data that you have access to in Dataverse. Search and replace can be kind of dangerous as well if you don't know what you're doing. When Microsoft changed from fields to columns, someone went in and did a find and replace all, it seemed, in Dataverse and Dynamics for fields to columns. What happened? Well, you suddenly had column service because you had field service, but that was not meant to be rebranded as column service. It should still be field service. Find and replace all changes everything. So be aware when you do this. And if you delete something here, it's gone. So be aware that all the don't do like one of my customers did. He went in and he marked all the data and he put remove content and he clicked save. And then everything, all of his contacts in Dataverse were blank. The records were still there. It was just the name and the email and everything was blank. So don't do that. Be aware. You can also prevent people from using Excel and Excel Online. If you have some customers, you know, I do not want them to tamper with Excel Online ever. So, the world before Power Automate. I often have the discussion if Power Automate really is low code. Sometimes it can be, but in my book, Power FX is code. If you need to tell a system what it needs to do by writing something or copying something, it is code. Drag and drop is not code. So you cannot do very much in Power Automate without adding any kind of code at all. But in the old days, you had workflows. And workflows is no code, can be code as well. So in your solution, everything you do should always be in a solution. And you should, of course, always do dev, test, production, and have managed solutions and all of that, but that's a bigger discussion. I'm not going into that now. I have a solution. I click new automation process and workflow. It's like the bottom, well hidden in the bottom of everything. You find workflows. It still works. When I create a new workflow, I get a display name. I have to choose the table. Do I want to run it in the background? Do I want it from blank or from template? I click create and I get this beautiful view here. And as you can see, we're now in the old days. This has not changed for 10 years, but it still works. It has worked and it has been tested for at least 10 years. I know customers who have hundreds and hundreds of workflows in their system and they're super dependent of them, but it works. So I can see I have the entity or table. I have the scope. Is it for the whole organization or for just one user who did the change? I can then specify when do I want this to change, to start. So when the record is created, so every time a new contact is created, when a status change is assigned, deleted, or when record fields change. So I want to say every single time someone updates their address, I want to start this workflow. If you try this in Power Automate, you know you have to create an if sentence and you have to have a fetch XML or whatever. It's code. You need to tell the system. Here, you select the column or the field that you want to trigger the workflow on, and then you click OK. Period. That's it. That is no code. And then you can check some conditions. You can say, okay, do I want the contact address type 2 to contain data? Okay, so if I have address 1, and normally I would do, if you have address 1, which is typically the visiting address or the postal address or whatever you use it for, and then you have address 2, which might be the post address. I normally have a single column checkbox that says, is post address the same as visiting address? If it is, I use a business rule to hide all the address 2 columns and copy the data from address 1 over to address 2. Super simple, easy, no problem. But I also need that to be updated. And that could be a workflow. So that condition could trigger on every time address 1 changes and the column that the visit address and post address is the same, then I copy the information from address 1 over to address 2. So I've updated the contact. I paste the information from, it's a pain, I know, it's a lot of clicks to get it working, but it's simple, it's just clicking. I just copy this and add it into the different columns of address 2, and my workflow is ready. So I've set when the record fields change. I have set the condition if the address 2 type contains data. Then I update the contact and I update it with the correct columns. Everything works. Now I just have to save it and I have to activate it, and it just works. No extra license, no extra nothing. I hope this never dies. So there are some other tools that we kind of have to mention in this world. PCF.gallery, Power Apps Component Framework. So all the different components that I've used for the columns, for the views, they are components. Guido Preta has created a PCF gallery where everyone can add their own PCF components for the developers who create these. And people like me, functional consultants, can download these into Solution and use it in our customer solution. A lot of them are free, some of them cost a bit, but go in and see, and there are a lot of PCFs in the system. So here you can see you have some checkbox control and you have some different ways of seeing choices and labels and everything. So there's a lot of great content. So pcf.gallery is the URL where you can find a lot of good components to use in the system. XRM Toolbox is probably the most important tool for anyone working with Dataverse and model-driven Power Apps. If you're not using XRM Toolbox, you are spending way too much time on a lot of stuff. It's free. It's free, so you don't have to pay anything, and it connects to any of your Dataverse instances. For example, the view layout replicator, where you go in, creating a new view, and then you just want to add this one column, and then you have 15 different versions of this view. And out of the box, I have to go into each and every view, add that column, click on Save and Publish, go to the next view, add the column, click. It takes a lot of time. But with a view layout replicator, you do this once, you go into XRM Toolbox, and you select the view you want to copy, and you select your 15 other views, and you click Publish, and that's it. Magic. Iconator. The icons that we used in the reference panel has to come from somewhere. It's so much easier to just upload it in Iconator and then get it into the system, and then you can easily use it, because this is the finishing touch. If you ever add a new table in the system, it should have an icon. So that's the ones you see, the pictures you see in the system. If you're seeing a puzzle piece, it's not been added a separate icon, and it doesn't look as good. Fetch XML Builder, bulk data updater. There's a lot of tools. I think there are well over 300 different tools in XRM Toolbox, and you can create others. It's brilliant. 2 minutes left. Copilot. It's impossible to have a session these days without Copilot. Now, I have to say, there are not any Copilots for model-driven apps, as I've seen. You can create an app, that's a Canvas app. You can create a table, that's Dataverse. Copilot, well, I've used it to create demo data. Now, this lazy Copilot I said, create 50 rows with opportunities with these headers. Okay, here are 50 rows. And it says 1, 2, 3, ... row 50. I export this into Excel to import it into the system. And it actually, this is how it looks. It says ... and then row 50. So it skips from 4 to 49. They don't exist. So it works okay-ish, but it can be good to get some demo data if you want to fill the system and have some demo data. So that's what I've used Copilot for this session. I think we have 1 minute. Are there any questions?